Later, as Paul read through Coffey's conviction sheet, he learned about the crime in detail. 2 little girls had gone missing from their home in Louisiana, and their father, Klaus, along with the neighbors, launched a frantic search. Eventually, they found John deep in the woods, sitting in the dirt, clutching the bloodied bodies of the girls. He was weeping, stroking their hair, and howling in anguish. Everyone assumed the worst. John had kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered them. The case seemed open and shut. But as Paul read through the files, something about it didn't sit right. One day, Paul was approached by his superior, Hal Morse, who had 2 important updates. First, Percy Wetmore was considering leaving to take an administration job at Briar Ridge Mental Hospital. But he refused to leave. Paul speculates that Percy will leave not until he gets to personally witness an execution up close. Second, Hal had a more personal concern. His wife, Melinda, was gravely ill. He will be taking her to Vicksburg in the next day or so, for some tests. That night, Paul shared the news with his wife, Jan, telling her about Melinda's condition and about the new inmate, John Coffey, who, despite his conviction, seemed simple-minded and childlike. Meanwhile, life in the prison carried on. One evening, Brutus and Dean discovered a small mouse in the cell block, hiding in the storage room. The little creature became a source of joy for the inmates and even the guards. But when Percy saw it, he immediately decided to kill it, simply because it made people happy. He searched for it, but the mouse was too clever, always disappearing before he could catch it. Around the same time, the guards began preparing for an execution. Arlen Bitterbuck, a Native American prisoner sentenced to death. Percy was trained in proper execution procedures, particularly why a wet sponge must be placed on the condemned's head, to ensure the electricity flows through the brain quickly, delivering a swift, painless death. When Arlen's execution took place, it was carried out smoothly, just as practiced. Afterward, Percy approached Paul with a deal. He wanted to take Brutal's place during the next execution, just once, in exchange for finally leaving the prison for good. Paul didn't trust him, but it seemed like the only way to get rid of Percy for good. Days later, one of the inmates, Edouard Delacroix, did something unexpected. He tamed the little mouse and named it Mr. Jingles. The two had developed an incredible bond, and Delacroix even taught the mouse tricks, amazing the other prisoners and guards alike. But before Paul had time to dwell on it, he was summoned by Hal Morse once again. There was a new inmate arriving at Cold Mountain, one unlike any they had seen before. His name was William Wild Bill Wharton. Wild Bill was a vicious, unhinged criminal, sentenced to death for murdering 3 people during a hold-up.